Hi, how are you doing? A couple of days ago I put out a video, Nazis for Corbyn, and people could well say, well, there's Nazis for President Trump as well. Does that also make Trump a Nazi? And it's a fair point insofar as it goes, but let's look at that point. President Trump is a great friend of the Jewish people, a lifelong great friend of the Jewish people. He loves Israel. Jeremy Corbyn hates Israel and is a great friend of genocidal anti-Semites and Holocaust deniers. I think we can see with whom Nazi support sits most comfortably with. From a very early age, my mind was seared with Hitler and the Holocaust. It was part of a normal upbringing. It was everywhere. Pardon me. And I well remember we stayed at a bed and breakfast in Clacton when I was about 8. And one evening it seemed that everyone who was staying was in the sitting room to watch a documentary on Auschwitz. It was an ITV documentary, lasted about 2 hours. And at the end of it, there was a deathly hush in the sitting room. We had all just witnessed abject horror. And it seemed inconceivable, certainly to an 8-year-old child, that horror could ever repeat itself. But, pardon me, a few years later it became clear that there were people who did want that horror to repeat itself. Round about when I was 12 years old, 1977 thereabouts, the Labour Party put out a party political broadcast that laid bare that the National Front was a Nazi party. And it was the talk of the school the next day. Everyone loved it. And that Labour Party political broadcast absolutely destroyed the National Front. Whatever became of that Labour Party? Yesterday we saw 7 Labour MPs leave, the main reason being the worst imaginable, because Jeremy Corbyn was not sufficiently betraying Labour's manifesto pledge to honour Brexit. And I saw our Luciana Berger being interviewed. She was directly asked by a BBC journalist if she thought Jeremy Corbyn is an anti-Semite, and she evaded the question. It just seems written in the stars that people will just do the worst thing possible to oppose, inverted commas, Jeremy Corbyn. And it's leading him on a conveyor belt to power. And of course today we've had Tories, some ex-Tories join the TIG group, the independent group. And so there's going to be as many votes taken away from the Tories as there will be from Labour. And Jeremy Corbyn must be laughing. I mean, why do you think his zealots have been harassing and intimidating Corbyn's opponents so that they leave and they've got what they want? One of the rest of the Labour MPs, the vast majority of whom are not Hitlerian, well, let's take a look at this clip of Hilary Benn when he was Shadow Foreign Secretary.
Argument, Mr. Speaker, for treating the two countries as one if we are serious about defeating Daesh. Now, Mr. Speaker, I hope the House will bear with me if I direct my closing remarks to my Labour friends and colleagues on this side of the House. As a party, we have always been defined by our internationalism. We believe we have a responsibility one to another. We never have, and we never should, walk by on the other side of the road. And we are here faced by fascists. Not just their calculated brutality, but their belief that they are superior to every single one of us in this chamber tonight and all of the people that we represent. They hold us in contempt. They hold our values in contempt. They hold our belief in tolerance and decency in contempt. They hold our democracy, the means by which we will make our decision tonight, in contempt. And what we know about fascists is that they need to be defeated.
Mr. Ben, it's all very well sending the RAF 3,000 miles away to drop bombs on fascists. But when fascists have taken over your party and you are missing in action, those words ring very hollow. Let's take a look at a couple of extracts of recent articles by Dan Hodges and Nick Cohen. Labour's so-called moderates are not the heirs of Attlee, Wilson and Blair. They are the heirs of Neville Chamberlain. Not since the 1930s have we seen a more squalid abandonment of basic political principle on the altar of personal expediency. Actually, that's unfair to Chamberlain. He thought he was saving his nation from a war. Labour's moderate MPs are interested only in saving themselves. Others no longer have the stomach for a fight. The gleeful abuse, the revelling in the power to humiliate, inflicted on them by Labour members they regard as sociopaths, is too much. The far left is doing what it has done throughout its history, making life so unbearable for those who disagree with it that they give up and walk away. A third, one of the party's greatest assets, told me, "I may not stand again. Momentum wants to put me up for re-selection. I'd probably win, but who wants to waste their life fighting them? And for what?" Let's take another look at the last bit of that last extract. But who wants to waste their life fighting them? And for what? What for? What is the point of stopping fascists from taking over your party to use its good name to take over the country? What is the point? It's a good job that that Labour MP is getting out of politics because his country does not need him. Let's hope that there's someone else in his constituency who will remember the words of Hugh Gateskill and will fight, fight and fight again to save the party he loves. The Labour Party has fallen to fascism, but it can be taken back if Labour MPs are willing to fight. In 2016, they overwhelmingly passed a motion of no confidence in Jeremy Corbyn. We've had an election since. There's more Corbynite MPs, but we've just seen that clip from Hilary Benn. I am certain that if Hilary Benn stood for leadership of the Parliamentary Labour Party, he would win by a landslide. And he could then call upon his supporters in the constituency Labour parties to table motions, to table loyalty votes, to recognise his leadership and to call for the expulsion of Jeremy Corbyn and his supporters for holding fascist views on terrorism and anti-Semitism incompatible with membership of a democratic party. Without doubt, in many Labour constituencies, or constituency Labour parties should I say, without doubt that vote would not be carried. But parallel party structures could be set up, and I believe that over time the Labour Party could take itself back from the people who have turned it into a mutant fascist party. It's just a question of whether or not today's Labour parliamentarians have the moral courage of their predecessors.
And fight again to bring back sanity and honesty and dignity, so that our party, with its great past, may retain its glory and its greatness.
Caught in the crowd, he was forced to address the Bogsiders from an upstairs window.
I was told yesterday that I was welcome because I am neutral. I replied, I am not neutral. I am on the side of those, whoever they may be, and in whatever community they live, who are deprived of justice and of freedom.
And you end in the grotesque chaos of a Labour council hiring taxis to scuttle round the city, handing out redundancy notices to its own workers.
We therefore here in Britain stand shoulder to shoulder with our American friends in this hour of tragedy, and we, like them, will not rest until this evil is driven from our world.